Senator Bernie Sanders has been making noise ever since he has announced his candidacy for president in 2020. In about 24 hours, the Sanders campaign raised, just over $6 million in about 24 hours. And in less than a week after announcing, Sanders raised $10 million for his campaign. And that comes from over 350,000 total donors. So I know corporate media outlets are refraining from being honest and telling the truth to their audience. But we have no qualms with that here. So I'll go ahead and say it. Again, Bernie Sanders is the front runner.
Of course.
He's the front runner.
I think he has more push this time than he has last time.
Yeah.
I think I read a report or an article that was citing a report that highlighted that like 33, it could have been 33 or 38% of the donations came from new emails.
Right.
I can't remember the percent. It was like in the 30s. I can't remember the exact percent.
I think it was like 34%, something like that. Yeah. That's outstanding. It's outstanding because what that suggests is that not only does he have the large following that he had in 2016, but it's even growing, coming into 2020. So that's good.
He's accumulating more support.
Right.
I wonder why.
Can't be about his policies or anything like that. So on Monday night, Bernie Sanders was at a town hall in Washington, D.C., and it was broadcast by CNN. So it was about an hour long. Lots of things were addressed. We have a few different clips that we want to play for you, and then we want to break it down. The first clip is Bernie Sanders talking about universal health care.
The United States, shamefully, is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. We've got 30 million people today without any health insurance. Many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments, and we pay the highest prices in the world by far for prescription drugs. So issue number one, I believe that health care is a human right, not a privilege, and we've got to guarantee health care to all of our people as a right. Number two, if we're going to do that in a cost-effective way, if we're going to make sure that we are not spending huge amounts of money, and in fact, lower the amount of money we're spending. We're now spending almost twice as much per capita on healthcare as any other country. That is unsustainable. The estimates is that in the next 10 years, we're going to spend $50 trillion on healthcare. The only way to provide healthcare to all people in a cost-effective way is a Medicare for all single-payer program.
About half of Americans, as you know, they're insured by their employer plans. According to a recent Gallup poll, 70% of these people with private health insurance, their plans, they like their plans. They think their plans are good. Will these people be able to keep their health insurance plans, their private plans, through their employers if there is a Medicare for all program that you endorse?
What will change in their plans is the color of their card. So instead of having a Blue Cross Blue Shield card, instead of having a United Health Insurance card, they're going to have a Medicare card. That Medicare card will allow them both to go to any doctor that they want. If they're going to the doctor, they're happy. Any hospital they want. But you know what else? They're not going to be paying any private insurance premiums. If they are seniors, we are going to expand Medicare benefits to cover dental care, which is not covered for seniors, hearing aids, and eyeglasses. There will be comprehensive health care. People can go to any doctor, dentist, or a hospital they want.
So if they like their health insurance plan, they won't be able to keep their health insurance plan?
Well, this business of liking your health insurance plan, which, by the way, employers change every single year. People like their doctors. They like the hospitals. They like the care they're getting. Our bill, in fact, right now, if you are in a particular program, you may not be able to go to the doctor that you want. Our program will allow you freedom of choice.
But if they wanted additional private health insurance beyond Medicare for all, would they be allowed to purchase that kind of health insurance?
Our bill covers all health care needs, all. If people want cosmetic surgery, for example, yes, of course they can get private insurance. But our bill covers all comprehensive health care needs.
Of course, this is Bernie Sanders' wheelhouse, talking about universal health care, single payer, Medicare for all. I think this is Bernie Sanders at some of his best. I love the part towards the end where he dispels the myth, the fallacy, that this notion that people love their healthcare coverage, right? No, they don't. And he just said it. They love their doctors. They can keep their doctors because they're not going anywhere. What they want is coverage that they can depend on. They want coverage that their doctor is going to be able to take. That's what that's what they're interested in. Employer plans change all the time. A lot of times they change from year to year to year. Mm-hmm. And employees like, okay, well, what's my premium this year? All right, what am I getting? I'm getting the same coverage? Oh, it's going to be a little bit cheaper? Okay, that's great. Okay. But the plan name, the company that is providing the coverage matters not.
I'm glad that Bernie Sanders went into talking about MFA right after the initial question was surrounding Trump and why he needed to be defeated. Uh-huh. And it focused on policy and not because Trump is a big fat meanie. So I think it was important for Bernie Sanders to go into MFA because Donald Trump promised better health care and didn't deliver.
At all.
At all.
He withdrew health care. He didn't add anything to it. He
withdrew health care. And I don't think people understand like how cost effective MFA would be compared to the current system we have. The private healthcare industry, most of their cost comes from overhead. Mm-hmm. You don't have to pay CEOs.
That's right.
You don't have to pay all this overhead and paying intermediaries.
Uh-huh. Right.
You know,
it's unnecessary.
To act between the customer and healthcare providers. So all of that cost, which Bernie Sanders highlighted, will be completely eliminated. And I thought it was interesting that Wolf Blitzer brought up, will people be able to keep their employer health plan? I'm like, dog, it's called Medicare for all.
Right.
Like, why wouldn't it apply for people who have jobs where their jobs provide health care? Mm-hmm. Now, you would think somebody like Wolf Blitzer, who's kind of always highlighted his allegiance to big business and corporate interest, would love the fact that this will take businesses off the hook. Uh-huh. Because most companies pay a portion of that. Uh-huh. So you would think somebody like Wolf Blitzer would be like, yeah, that's going to help these businesses. It's going to free up some of that that capital. Right? You know what I'm saying? So him bringing that up is kind of interesting, as if it's going to hurt businesses when at the end of the day it will help businesses.
It's a bunch of lies being told about Medicare for all. And another common one is that when you compare it to different countries, those are smaller countries. It won't actually help here. I mean, we have a bigger economy. We have more people. There's no way it can help. But Bernie Sanders talked about the per capita numbers. That's what you really need to look at. What are we paying for healthcare per capita? So the next clip that we wanted to get into was Bernie Sanders talking about higher education and about his plan, which we've heard about since 2015, 2016, about providing higher education for everyone at public colleges and universities, tuition free. So this is him addressing that.
We live in a competitive global economy. And if this economy in the United States is going to work, we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. 30 or 40 years ago, we actually did. We no longer do have the best educated workforce. And you indicated the reason why. Right now, you got hundreds of thousands of bright young people who cannot afford to go to college. We have young people like you who do go to college and they leave school $50,000, $100,000 in debt. I will never forget, in Burlington, Vermont, talking to a young physician, and she said, Bernie, I graduated medical school, $300,000 in debt. Saw a dentist in Iowa, $400,000 in debt. Frankly, that is crazy. We want you to get the best education you can without having to pay off outrageous levels of debt for decades. So what is the answer? The answer, in fact, is to understand that a higher education today is the equivalent of what a high school education was 40 or 50 years ago. And that means we make public colleges and universities tuition free, and we substantially lower the outrageous levels of student debt. Right now, you have young people carrying debt with interest rates of 6%, 7%, 8%, and that is nuts. And then Wolf is going to ask me in 3 minutes, how are we going to pay for that? Yes, Wolf?
Go ahead.
All right. And we're going to pay for that by a tax on Wall Street speculation. That's how we do it. And if we can give $1 trillion in tax breaks to people who don't need it, we can make public colleges and universities tuition-free all over this country. And that is a very high priority for me.
We've heard that where the money's going to come from before. He said a tax on Wall Street speculation. Whether or not you agree or even believe in it is, I don't even think it's the point. Because there are some criticisms, or there's some questions about, will it actually gather the amount of money necessary to actually fund something like this idea, like tuition-free public colleges and universities. I don't care. And I've said this many times before, because what we need to do in this country, if we actually want to promote a more robust economy, if we want to actually invest in entrepreneurship, jobs, all of this, we have to invest in our youth, who will be students, who will be workers. If we do that, the product that is returned is only going to make our economy stronger. So if you think about it as an investment, it doesn't matter. It's an investment. I don't care about spending money while we have a debt. You have to spend in the right places so that we can bring that debt down. That's all I really care about.
And also he mentioned the ridiculous level of debt that people come out of college with.
Exactly.
Like, what kind of situation does that create when people get out of college and people trying to start their lives? What kind of hindrance does that create?
Like
we talked about this. Oh, yeah, it does. So, I mean, what type of hindrances does that create, though? You know what I'm saying? Because I think we talked about that a couple of shows ago.
Right.
People are less likely to invest in their own entrepreneurial, activities. People are less likely to start families, buy houses. So that does indeed affect the economy when these people are strapped down with this enormous amount of debt with interest attached.
Yep.
And I do like how Bernie Sanders kind of got ahead of the game, because he knew what Wolf Blitzer was going to ask.
He knew it was going to come.
You knew it was going to come, and he knew it was going to come, and he still asked the question after Bernie Sanders completed his answer. Yeah. And it's a typical response. That's not just a response that Wolf Blitzer has, but it's that, well, what if the wealthy dodge those taxes?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? What if the wealthy, hide their money? What will you do then? And I'm just like, I'm like, man, the government doesn't let you get from under a speeding ticket, doesn't let you get from under paying your property taxes, back taxes, unpaid, whatever, speeding tickets, everything. Student loans as well. They don't let you get from under that. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure the same government can come up with some kind of regulation that prevents or penalizes the wealthy from dodging taxes.
True.
You know what I'm saying? So I think whether or not the proper, tax revenue controls can be applied with like Medicare for all or with free tuition, that is going to be the sticking point.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny, that question is always asked of Democratic candidates, Democratic politicians who are interested in spending money to actually represent people, to actually improve outcomes of, the majority of people in the middle class, or people, that are poor, below the poverty line. But that question is never asked of Republicans. It really isn't. But Republicans don't really propose spending. They propose cutting stuff. But in essence, when you cut stuff, especially when you cut taxes for the rich, what does that do, though? That reduces the revenue that is coming into the federal government. So what is that going to do? That's going to decrease. It's going to decrease how much money is coming in, but it's going to increase the debt. And so to rectify that issue, then they propose cutting different programs, entitlement spending, stuff like that. The whole, the student loan game that is being played on us, think about it. Pretty much anybody can get a student loan. At least one. At least one. Maybe if you've had one before, you may not be able to get one again if you defaulted on it or something like that, depending on the amount. But pretty much everyone can get a student loan. Can everyone get a business loan? can everyone get a business loan? So this country will allow you to rack up thousands and thousands of dollars in debt to fund your education. But they won't let you get a business loan so that you can actually make something of yourself. Because especially if you have that student loan, you think they're gonna put money on top of that? Oh yeah, we gave you thousands of dollars for a student loan. Here, let's
Here's
use
more
some
money to start your business or whatever.
Nah.